My wedding day to Jack had finally arrived. I, Sarah, was sitting in front of the mirror in a room decorated with white flowers and soft lights, while a team of makeup artists and hairdressers worked to transform me into the bride I always dreamed of being. My thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of nervousness and excitement that left me with an anxious smile on my lips. Every detail of that day seemed perfect, from the sparkle in the bridesmaids' eyes to the soft scent of the roses that decorated the room. However, there was one worry that haunted me, a shadow over the happiness of the moment. My mother-in-law, Margaret. From the beginning, Margaret never hid her disapproval of our relationship. She was a woman of strong opinions, whose presence commanded respect and fear. Her tall, imposing figure, always dressed elegantly and austerely, was a constant reminder that, to her, I would never be good enough for her son. The idea of having her as part of my family was, to say the least, intimidating. Her disapproval was a weight on my heart, a constant reminder that, in her eyes, I was taking away something precious that I could never give back. That morning, as I was adjusting my wedding dress, I heard whispering among the bridesmaids. They talked about my mother-in-law's plan to live up the ceremony with her own words. My ears caught every word, and my mind immediately began racing with anxious thoughts. Did Margaret plan to humiliate me in front of everyone? Was this the moment she would choose to show her disdain for me? The thought made me uneasy. A current of fear ran through my body, but I decided that I wouldn't let anything ruin that special day. I took a deep breath and tried to push away my worries, focusing on the joy of marrying the man I loved. Jack was my safe haven, my true love, and I knew that together we could overcome any obstacle, even his mother's disapproval. The bridesmaids, noticing my tension, tried to calm me down with encouraging words and supportive smiles. They reminded me that this was my day, that nothing and no one should take away the shine of the moment. Your gestures of affection were a balm for my soul, a source of strength that helped me face the challenges that lay ahead. As the time for the ceremony approached, I felt my heart beat faster, each beat a step closer to the moment I would say, "I do," to Jack. I was determined to focus on him and the life we were about to start together. The love I felt for Jack was my anchor, my motivation to keep my head up and my smile on my face, no matter what Margaret might have planned. I knew that true love would overcome any challenge, that our union was stronger than any obstacle that came our way. When I finally got into the car that would take me to the ceremony site, I felt a wave of tranquility wash over me. The path to the garden where we would get married was lined with trees and flowers. Every detail seemed to have been taken from a fairy tale. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced softly across the white dress I wore. The setting was perfect, a reflection of the love and hope I felt at that moment. She was ready to face anything, safe in the knowledge that she was about to start a new life with the man she loved. Finally, when I got out of the car and saw Jack waiting for me at the end of the hallway, I felt all my worries disappear. His smile was a ray of sunshine that dispelled any cloud of doubt or fear. He was there, with open arms, ready to welcome me as his wife. And at that moment, I knew that nothing and no one could take away the happiness I felt. The love we shared was stronger than any obstacle, and together, we were ready to face the future with courage and determination. The ceremony was being held in a beautiful garden, with flowers of all colors adorning the place. The setting was enchanting, with soft sunlight filtering through the trees, casting a golden glow on the guests who sat on white chairs arranged in pristine rows. The gentle sound of water running in a small fountain in the background added an almost magical serenity to the environment. Everything was going well until the moment when Margaret, my mother-in-law, asked to give a short speech. My heart raced immediately, and I felt a chill down my spine that made me shiver. I tried to prepare myself for the worst as she stood up, an unpromising smile on her face. Margaret moved with calculated grace. Each step seemed premeditated for impact. When she reached the center of the space where the ceremony was taking place, she turned to the audience, her gaze passing over each face before settling on Jack and then me. "I just want to say a few words," he began, his voice filled with a false sweetness that made me shiver. The tone of his voice was mellifluous, But there was a stiffness in his posture and a coldness in his eyes that indicated his intentions were not as benign as his words suggested. "It's a special day for Jack, and I've always dreamed of the best for him." As she spoke, I realized her comments were a mix of praise for Jack and veiled insults for me. It highlighted his qualities, each one grander than the last, painting a picture of an almost superhuman man. Jack was always an exemplary son, a man of unparalleled virtues, someone who always put his family first, she said, her voice echoing through the garden. "Any woman would be lucky to have him by her side," he added, with a look that seemed to pierce my soul, subtly insinuating that I might not be the ideal choice for him. His words were like knives hidden in a cloak of kindness. "I hope Sarah can match his greatness," she said, her words heavy with hidden meaning, her cold gaze meeting mine. It was as if she was casting a shadow over my place at Jack's side, insinuating that I was inferior, that I would never live up to the expectations she had for her son. Every word was a blow, every look an attempt to undermine my confidence. The tension in the ceremony was palpable. Each guest seemed to feel the electricity in the air, the anticipation of something unpleasant about to happen. I tried to maintain my composure, my lips forcing a smile that barely hid the discomfort I felt. As Margaret continued, her words were like a poison that seeped into the room, turning the serenity of the garden into an emotional battlefield. She talked about the importance of family, tradition, and honor, all things that she believed were fundamental to Jack, but that, implicitly or explicitly, I didn't share or measure up to. "It is crucial that those who enter our family understand and respect our values," she continued, giving me a look that seemed to pierce my skin, "and that they are ready for the commitment and sacrifice that it involves." His voice was soft, but each word carried the weight of a sentence. I knew that what was important was the love that Jack and I shared, that nothing could shake the strength of our union. I tried to focus on him, on his warm smile and the supportive look he gave me from where he stood. He was my refuge in the storm, the anchor that held me steady as Margaret's words tried to tear me down. I knew that no matter what she said, our love was stronger than any obstacle that could arise. And so, I kept my head high, my gaze fixed on Jack, while Margaret finished her speech with a smile that, although full of venom, failed to dim the light of our love. The party continued with music and dancing, but the shadow of Margaret's words hung over me like a dark cloud on what should have been a perfect day. The garden, which had once seemed like a fairy tale setting, now seemed like a minefield of critical looks and spiteful whispers. Margaret, with her imposing presence and smile that didn't reach her eyes, seemed determined to humiliate me in every way possible. She moved among the guests with the grace of a queen, spreading little gossip and derogatory comments about me, each one sharper than the last. As I passed from group to group, I heard whispers that brought up details of my humble background, something that Margaret seemed to find deeply inappropriate for someone who was marrying her son. "Did you know that Sarah's family doesn't have much money?" I heard someone say. "And it looks like she doesn't have much talent in the kitchen either." Another comment cut through the air like a sharp blade. Every laugh, every look of condescension, was a new wound that opened in my heart. I felt my face burn with shame, as if I were being exposed to a cruel light that revealed every one of my supposed flaws. Jack, sensing my distress, remained by my side the entire time, his warm smile and encouraging words the only relief amid the emotional chaos unfolding around me. "Ignore what they say, Sarah. What matters is how we feel about each other," he whispered in my ear, trying to comfort me. His strong hands held mine firmly, a gesture that gave me strength to face the storm of criticism and judgment. But even her support couldn't completely erase the pain of the cruel words Margaret continued to hurl at me. During the bride and groom's dance, a moment that should have been full of joy and love, Margaret approached once again. Now, she was accompanied by a group of aunts and cousins, all with the same look of contempt. They moved like a phalanx, their combined presence creating a sense of oppression that seemed to suffocate the festive atmosphere. "Sarah, do you really think you can be a good wife for Jack?" Margaret asked, her voice filled with poisonous sweetness. "He deserves someone worthy, don't you think?" The words were spoken in a casual tone, but the intention to demoralize me was clear, like a knife hidden in a bouquet of flowers. Every word was a blow, every look an attempt to knock me down. I could feel my eyes filling with tears, a reflection of the pain and humiliation Margaret was trying to inflict. The feeling of being judged, of being considered inadequate for who I was an almost unbearable burden. But I refused to let the tears fall. I knew I needed to be strong, that I couldn't let Margaret see the devastating impact of her words. Jack, sensing my internal struggle, squeezed my hand and looked deeply into my eyes, his silence support a beacon in the darkness. With a monumental effort, I held my head up, a forced smile on my face, trying to show Margaret and everyone else that their words couldn't reach me. I knew that the most important thing was the love that Jack and I shared, that our bond was stronger than any criticism or judgment. And as the music continued to play and the guests continued to dance, I decided that I wasn't going to let Margaret or anyone else ruin what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. A few weeks after the wedding, a peaceful morning was interrupted by an urgent call from Jack. His voice, normally calm and confident, was tinged with an anxiety I had never heard before. "Sarah, my mother is in the hospital," he said, his words quick and full of concern. "She collapsed, and the doctors don't know exactly what's going on." I felt my heart tighten. A mixture of worry and apprehension took over me. Margaret, who had always looked at me with disdain, was now vulnerable and defenseless. Without hesitation, I ran to the hospital, each step a mix of nervousness and uncertainty about what we would find. Upon arrival, the hospital environment was cold and impersonal. The constant sound of beeping and low murmurs created an atmosphere of tension. I was directed to the room where Margaret was admitted. I found her lying on a bed, pale and weak, her eyes closed in a look of pain that seemed to consume all her energy. The face that previously displayed a malicious smile and looks of superiority was now marked by fear and uncertainty. It was difficult to reconcile that image of fragility with the strong, intimidating woman I had always known. The doctors, with serious and concerned expressions, explained to us that Margaret was seriously ill. "She needs constant care over the next few weeks," the doctor said, his voice heavy with seriousness. "We don't know exactly what is causing these symptoms, but it is crucial that she receives continued assistance to recover." Jack and I sat in silence, processing the gravity of the situation. I felt a mixture of conflicting feelings inside me. Relief at the thought that perhaps this experience could teach her a lesson in humility, and a deep compassion at seeing her so vulnerable and defenseless. Jack was visibly shaken. His eyes reflected a pain he tried to hide. Although Margaret had never been kind to me, she was Jack's mother, and her concern for her affected me deeply. "Sarah, I don't know what to do," he said, his voice a whisper of desperation. I held his hand, feeling the need to offer him some comfort, to be the anchor he needed so much in that difficult time. I knew that no matter how Margaret treated me, I couldn't turn my back on her. She was Jack's mother, and he needed me more than ever. Facing the reality of caring for Margaret was a challenging task. While part of me felt perverse relief at seeing her in such a vulnerable position, another part of me knew I couldn't abandon someone in need, especially when that person was tied to the man she loved. Jack and I discussed the options in silence, both understanding the magnitude of the responsibility we were taking on. "We'll do whatever it takes to take care of her," I said, my voice filled with a determination that came from the love I felt for Jack. The decision was made. Margaret would stay with us, and together, we would face the challenges that lay ahead. I knew the next few days would be difficult, full of emotional and physical challenges, but I also knew this was an opportunity to show her, and myself, the true strength of character and unconditional love. As Jack and I prepared for the arduous task of caring for his mother, I felt a strange sense of peace. We were in this together, and this unity, forged in the heat of adversity, would make us stronger and more connected than ever. With Margaret's health deteriorating rapidly, the decision to take her to our home became inevitable. I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but I also knew it was the right thing to do, a matter of honor and humanity. I prepared a downstairs bedroom, transforming what was once a storage space into a sanctuary of care and comfort. Every detail was carefully thought out to ensure she had easy access to the bathroom and medical care. The bed was made up with soft sheets. A comfortable armchair was placed next to the window so she could enjoy the natural light and see the garden. Jack, overwhelmed with work, trusted me to take on most of the responsibilities, and I knew he needed that security to deal with his own pain. The task of caring for Margaret was not just a matter of administering medicine and ensuring she was fed. It was a profound emotional challenge, a test of compassion and patience. I quickly learned his medication routine, the difference between times and dosages, each detail a crucial piece in the puzzle of his recovery. Every meal I prepared was made with the care of someone who not only wants to nourish their body, but also offer a little comfort and dignity to those who are suffering. Every gesture, every touch, was an attempt to ease the burden of his illness and provide him with a little peace in the midst of the chaos. Margaret, always so independent and proud, struggled with this new reality of vulnerability. In the early days, his resistance was palpable. She was distant and moody, her words sharp with a bitterness that reflected more than just physical discomfort. It was a reflection of a wounded pride and an emotional resistance to accepting the help he so desperately needed. "I don't need you," she said in a voice filled with contempt, but her physical weakness betrayed her, showing the true extent of her need. Every attempt I made to offer help was met with a mixture of resistance and resignation, as if every gesture of care was a personal defeat for her. Margaret's inner battle was visible in every interaction. There was a conflict between the need for help and the desire to maintain autonomy, a struggle that I could feel in every look and every word. Every time I helped her get up, every time I adjusted her pillows or helped her eat, she cringed, as if the simple act of accepting help was a humiliation. It was as if he was waging a silent war between his need for support and his burning desire to be self-sufficient, to keep his dignity intact. This duality made each day a new challenge, a new opportunity to show her that accepting help was not a sign of weakness, but a gesture of courage and confidence. Over time, Margaret's resistance began to break, and her need for help became more apparent. Each day was a step toward a new form of acceptance, a slow realization that her fragility did not lessen her worth, but rather revealed a different, deeper strength. I began to notice small changes in her attitude, moments when she allowed a gesture of care without resistance, a look that gave silent thanks. Each small victory was a confirmation that, despite all the difficulties, we were moving in the right direction, building a new foundation of trust and respect. The emotional and physical burden of caring for Margaret was heavy, but at the same time, every gesture of care, every day spent at her side, was a reaffirmation of my commitment to Jack and the promise of being a true family, even in the circumstances more challenging. It was constant learning, a daily lesson about the power of compassion and the importance of being there for those who need us, regardless of the past or the difficulties we face. And so, day after day, I continued to care for Margaret, determined to show her and myself that, despite everything, kindness and true love would always find a way. As the days went by, Margaret began to open up a little more, allowing a new dynamic to develop between us. Perhaps it was the effect of the illness, which forced her to confront her own vulnerability, or perhaps it was the simple fact that she was realizing that I was truly there to help her, for no other reason than a genuine desire to see her recover. Conversations began hesitantly, small exchanges of words during meals, or while I helped her with her daily needs. Every word exchanged was a brick in the construction of a fragile bridge, an attempt to overcome the mistrust that previously characterized our relationship. Margaret began to talk about her past, revealing a life marked by challenges and battles that she faced with surprising strength. She told me how she had struggled to raise Jack alone after the untimely death of her husband, a man who, in her own words, was the love of her life. "It was hard," she said one afternoon, her soft voice filled with a deep sadness. "I lost the man I loved, and I had to find the strength to move on because of Jack." The stories of her life revealed a strong, resilient woman who had endured significant loss and yet continued to fight with determination. I listened attentively. Her every word was a piece of a puzzle that began to reveal the complexity of her personality. I understood that his bitterness and hostile behavior were not directed specifically at me, but were reflections of his own pain and insecurities. The hardships she had faced hardened her, creating a defensive barrier that protected her from further suffering. Little by little, I realized that the strict, critical woman I knew was, in fact, a person who had suffered a lot and who used her severity as a shield against further disappointment. As I listened to her, a connection began to form between us, a fragile bridge built on mutual understanding and the need for support. Margaret's stories helped me see beyond her actions and words, revealing a person who, like everyone else, needed love and understanding. She began to see me not just as her son's wife, but as a person willing to be by her side regardless of her past and how she had treated me before. I could feel the tension between us easing, replaced by a new form of respect and understanding. Our conversations became more frequent and deeper, each an opportunity to discover something new about the other. Margaret shared her hopes and fears, her joys and sorrows, each revelation a step toward building a stronger, more genuine relationship. She talked about her worries about the future, about how she feared losing control of her life and becoming a burden to those she loved. "I don't want to be a burden to Jack or to you," she confessed one night, her voice a soft whisper in the darkness of the room. His words touched me deeply, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't realized before. This new phase of our relationship brought with it a sense of relief and hope. I realized that, despite the difficulties, we were beginning to understand each other in a way I never thought possible. Margaret began to trust me, to see me as someone she could count on. Every gesture of care I offered was now met with gratitude rather than resistance. She started looking for me to talk, to share her reflections and feelings. Every day was a new opportunity to strengthen our connection, to build a relationship based on respect and understanding. Over time, the emotional distance that once separated us began to disappear. The mutual respect we were cultivating was a testament that, regardless of the past, there is always the possibility of building something new and meaningful. Margaret became more open and less bitter, her hostility giving way to a softer, more accepting attitude. And I, in turn, began to see in her not just a difficult mother-in-law, but a woman who had a lot to offer, a person who, despite her flaws and imperfections, was willing to change and build something better. Thus, our relationship flourished, showing that understanding and compassion are capable of transforming even the most hardened hearts. As time passed, constant care and patience began to bear fruit, and Margaret began to show signs of improvement. His physical health, which had previously seemed so fragile and unstable, began to show signs of recovery. She was stronger, her color was returning, and little by little she was beginning to resume small parts of her daily routine. Each day brought a new breakthrough, new hope that she was truly recovering. But more important than the physical changes were the transformations in his attitude. Margaret, once a bitter and suspicious presence, began to open up, her hostility gradually being replaced by sincere gratitude and renewed respect. The transformation was palpable in his gestures and words. Where before there was coldness and criticism, there was now an openness to dialogue and an acknowledgement of the small kindnesses I offered daily. "Sarah, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for everything you've done for me," she confessed one day. Her voice was thick with sincerity, her eyes shining with an emotion I'd never seen in her before. His words were a milestone in our relationship, an acknowledgement that the barrier that once separated us was finally crumbling. These words weren't just a superficial thank you, but an admission that something significant had changed between us. They represented a silent victory over the prejudice and resistance that had marked our coexistence from the beginning. Those words were proof that, despite all the difficulties and challenges, something good had come out of that terrible situation. I felt that I had achieved something much more valuable than Margaret's physical recovery. He had won his respect and, perhaps, even his affection. Margaret began to trust me more, a trust that manifested itself in small gestures and moments of vulnerability. She allowed me to help her with things she had previously stubbornly refused, showing an openness that was both a surprise and a pleasure to me. She began to see me not as an enemy, but as someone who was truly there to help, someone who wanted the best for her and Jack. This change was a balm for my soul, a confirmation that my effort and patience had not been in vain. Each day that passed strengthened our new relationship. Margaret became a less judgmental and more collaborative presence, offering suggestions rather than criticism, sharing experiences and advice that I began to truly value. She came to see me as part of her family, an ally rather than an adversary. The mutual respect we were building was a bridge that connected us in a way I never thought possible, a demonstration that physical healing was just the beginning of a much deeper process of transformation. Margaret began to participate more in family activities, showing a genuine interest in my life and ideas. Every conversation, every moment shared was an opportunity to reinforce the bonds we were forming, to build a relationship based on understanding and mutual support. She began to see that my presence in Jack's life was not a threat, but a blessing that brought balance and love to the family. Her actions and words showed that she was striving to repair the damage caused by her initial resistance, trying to build a new foundation for our coexistence. The relationship that was emerging was a testament to the power of patience, love, and compassion to transform even the most hardened hearts. I began to feel real affection for Margaret, a woman who, despite her flaws and hardships, was trying to find a path of redemption and renewal. And so, as she continued to recover physically, our lives were also being healed in ways I never could have imagined. We were building something beautiful and lasting, a new family united by respect, love, and mutual understanding. Over time, Margaret grew into a positive, inspiring presence in our home, radiating an energy that once seemed unthinkable. The environment that was previously marked by tension and distrust was transformed into a space of warmth and welcome. She began to become more deeply involved in family activities, actively participating in dinners, celebrations, and even the small daily traditions that we built over time. With each new interaction, the barriers that previously separated us began to crumble, allowing a relationship of affection and mutual respect to flourish. Margaret, who had once been critical and reserved, was now caring and open. His attitude toward me went from cold and distant to encouraging and tender. One day, as we sat in the garden, enjoying the gentle afternoon breeze, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You have a big heart, Sarah. Jack is lucky to have you." His words, full of sincerity, touched me deeply, more than any gesture could express. It was an acknowledgement that, despite all adversity, I had earned his respect and, more importantly, his affection. These words were a milestone in our relationship, a sign that I had exceeded his expectations and proven myself to be the right partner for his son. For me, it was as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. From that moment on, Margaret became a true mother to me, offering wise advice and constant support. His words, which were once full of criticism, were now full of encouragement and love. She began sharing her experiences with me and offering guidance about life, always with a warm and welcoming approach. Our lunches together, which were previously marked by awkward silence and avoided glances, turned into moments of connection and joy. We spent hours talking about everything, from life's challenges to the small joys of everyday life. I began to see in Margaret not just Jack's mother, but a strong, courageous woman who had faced and overcome many challenges throughout her life. Her resilience and wisdom began to inspire me in ways I had never imagined. Our evening conversations, previously limited to formalities and superficialities, were now deep and meaningful. We talked about our dreams, fears, and hopes, sharing confidences that brought us even closer. Margaret began to see in me not just a daughter-in-law, but a friend and confidant she could trust. This new kind of relationship, built on mutual respect and the love we shared for Jack, became a constant source of support and joy for both of us. Margaret's transformation was a powerful testament to the human capacity to change and grow. She not only recovered physically, but also found a new way of living and relating to others. Your support and guidance have become fundamental in my life, and I have come to value your presence in ways I never thought possible. Every day with her was a new opportunity to learn and grow, to strengthen the bond that united us as a family. The love Margaret and I shared for Jack was the foundation on which our new relationship was built, but the friendship and respect we developed for each other was what truly brought us together. Looking back, I saw that the journey that began with distrust and criticism had transformed into a path of love and understanding. And so, With Margaret by my side, I felt that our family was stronger and more united than ever, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Margaret's illness, which initially seemed like an unbearable burden, proved to be a catalyst for profound and unexpected transformation. As his health improved, his life also took a new direction, bringing with it meaning and gratification that had previously been unknown to him. Not only did Margaret regain her physical vitality, she also found a new purpose that filled her life with meaning. His near-death experience became a driving force for a journey of self-discovery and personal renewal that no one could have predicted. Margaret began participating in support groups, where her presence became a source of comfort and inspiration for many. Her story of overcoming, from the darkest days of her illness to her recovery, deeply touched those facing their own battles. "I've learned a lot from everything I've been through," she told me one day, as we were having tea in the garden. His voice, filled with new wisdom, was calm and reflective. And I want to use that to make a difference in other people's lives. His words were not just a reflection on the past, but a commitment to a brighter, more purposeful future. With new energy and determination, Margaret became a passionate advocate for healthcare and community support. She began sharing her own story of recovery and transformation, using it as a tool to inspire and motivate those facing similar challenges. At community meetings, workshops, and charity events, Margaret stood out as a voice of experience and hope. Her path to redemption was not just a personal journey, but a mission to help others find the same light that she had found in the darkness. Margaret also reconnected with old friends, those who had been distant during her years of bitterness and isolation. The barriers that once separated her from others were now being broken down, and she approached them with an open heart and a renewed willingness to cultivate meaningful relationships. "It's never too late to start over," she told me one day as we planned a reunion with some of her old friends. His joy in rekindling these ties was contagious, a testament to his new outlook on life. In addition to renewing old ties, Margaret also made new friendships that enriched her life in unexpected ways. People who found her a source of strength and an example of resilience began to approach her, seeking her guidance and friendship. Each new connection was an opportunity to spread the love and hope that now guided her life. In casual encounters or at community events, she became a constant and welcome presence, someone everyone knew they could count on for a sincere smile or a word of encouragement. The impact of her transformation was felt by everyone around her, and Margaret became a symbol of strength and hope in our community. The once bitter and hostile woman had metamorphosed into a figure of compassion and inspiration. Her story of overcoming and her dedication to helping others resonated deeply, turning her into a living example that change and redemption are possible, regardless of the initial circumstances. His life was now a vibrant testament to the power of recovery and the importance of finding a greater purpose. For me, Margaret was not just a mother-in-law or a figure transformed by illness. She became a true mother and an invaluable friend. Your journey taught me lessons of resilience and compassion that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. I admired her courage in facing her inner demons and her determination to turn her pain into something positive for others. Margaret was now someone I deeply admired, a presence who enriched my life in ways I could never have imagined. And so, with each new day, our family grew stronger, united by respect, love, and hope for a future full of infinite possibilities. As time passed, the relationship between Margaret and I blossomed in amazing ways, transforming into something I had never imagined possible. The woman who once looked at me with suspicion and criticism was now a caring and supportive figure in my life. Margaret became not just a mother-in-law, but a true mother to me, offering a love that exceeded any expectations I might have had. The bond that grew between us was an unexpected gift, tangible proof that even in the most difficult and challenging situations, it is possible to find kindness, redemption, and a rebirth of affection. "Sarah, you showed me that it is possible to change, that it is possible to find light even in the shadows," she told me one day, as we sat on the porch, looking at the sunset that colored the sky with shades of orange and pink. Her words were a testament to how much she had changed, the transformation that had occurred not only in her body but also in her soul. I looked at her, eyes filled with tears of gratitude, and realized that despite all the hardships, our journey together had been a blessing in disguise. The disease that initially brought so much suffering and uncertainty ended up revealing an opportunity for growth and transformation for both. What began as a painful obligation turned into an experience of healing and reconciliation. Looking back, I see that every moment of pain, every tear shed, and every night of worry was worth it. Each challenge we faced together strengthened our bond. Each difficulty overcome was a step towards a deeper understanding and stronger love. Today, my home is a place of peace and love, where Margaret is a constant and welcome presence. She is not just a mother-in-law who overcame her limitations, but a dear friend and a loving mother. Your transformation is a daily reminder that life is full of surprises and that even in the worst circumstances, there is always the possibility of a new beginning. Our house, which was once just a physical space, has become a home filled with laughter, shared stories, and a depth of love that transcends any challenges the past may have presented. Every day is a new opportunity to build on what we have learned, to strengthen the bonds that unite us, and to celebrate the life we have together. Margaret, with her wisdom and experience, continues to be a source of guidance and support for me, helping me navigate life's complexities with grace and understanding. She has become an essential part of our family, a pillar of strength and love that we all deeply value. Your presence is a constant source of joy and inspiration, a reminder that a true family is built on love, respect, and the desire to grow together. And so, we begin a new chapter in our lives, a chapter full of hope, love, and the promise of a bright and happy future together. Each morning brings with it the opportunity to create new memories, to strengthen the bonds that unite us, and to find joy in the little things that make up our daily lives. Our journey, which began with uncertainty and pain, turned into a beautiful story of redemption and unconditional love. And I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that no matter what the future may bring, we will face everything together, with hearts full of gratitude and the certainty that we are exactly where we are supposed to be.